Shalom, Aleichem. Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Shawn. Today, we are starting the Torah portion for this year. And the reason why we're doing it on Monday is because the schedule, we should have actually done it on Friday. And so we're doing that today. And then this Friday, we'll do this week's portion, which is Noach. So today is Bereshit. Now, I always say this at the beginning of any time we start doing a season on Torah portion or Prophets portion or anything like that. You can learn more about what this is and why we do it by simply going to scriptureandprophecy.com. I have an article up there that just goes into detail explaining what this is, why we do it. So if you go to teachings at the far right of the website, there is the first link under teaching is what is the weekly Torah portion, and that's where you can find that. Now, some of you are surprised that I'm doing this because a post went on YouTube a few days ago explaining why I wasn't doing it this year. And the reason why that happened is because that was what I was planning, and I scheduled that post out in advance. Well, then I changed my mind, but then I forgot about the post that was coming out. So the post came out. Anyway, long story. All that really matters is that here we are. And so we are going to do it this year. I went back and forth about it, but I just can't let it go. And I thought Bereshit was this coming Friday, and I went and I looked at the schedule this morning, and to my shock, I missed it on last Friday, so here we are. We're going to be reading Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 1 through chapter 6, verse 8. I've done no pre-reading or anything this morning. We're just going to hop right in. Let me give you the Torah portion summary from torahportions.org, and then we're going to get started. The scroll of the Torah is the oldest and most sacred of Yisrael's scriptures. It contains 5 books. The Hebrew name for the first one is Bereshit. It is also the first word of the book in Hebrew text, as well as the name for the first Parsha, weekly reading. Bereshit means in the beginning. The English name Genesis comes from the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. Genesis means origins. Therefore, the Greek named the first book of the Bible the Book of Origins. So, I'm going to begin. I am reading from the Hallelujah Scriptures this morning, only because I'm pressed for time and I don't have time to make a decision on this. So I'm not married to this idea that we were going to use the Hallelujah Scriptures the whole time, but we very well may. All right, deep breath. Open up your hearts. See what the Word of God has to say to you this morning. Just a few Hebrew words that you're going to hear that you may not be accustomed to. Shemayim. It's talking about the heavens. Ruach, that's the Spirit of God. And the other ones I'm sure you will understand. Verse 1. In the beginning, Elohim created the Shemayim and the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Ruach of Elohim was moving on the face of the waters. And Elohim said, "Let light come to be," and light came to be. And Elohim saw the light that it was good. And Elohim separated the light from darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, day 1. And Elohim said, "Let an expanse come to be in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from waters." And Elohim made the expanse and separated the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse. And it came to be so. And Elohim called the expanse Shemayim. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the second day. And Elohim said, "Let the waters under the Shemayim be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear," and it came to be so. And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the collection of waters he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Elohim said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the plant that yields seeds, the fruit tree that yields fruit, according to its kind, whose seed is in itself, on the earth. And it came to be so. And the earth brought forth grass, the plant that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruits, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the third day. And Elohim said, Let lights come to be in the expanse of the Shemayim to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and appointed times for the days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the Shemayim to give light on the earth. And it came to be so. And Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And Elohim placed them in the expanse of the Shemayim to give light on earth, and to rule over the day, and over the night, and to separate light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the 4th day. And Elohim said, Let the waters teem with shoals of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth on the face of the expanse of the Shemayim. And Elohim created great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters teemed, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Elohim barak them, that is to say, blessed them, saying, Bear fruits and increase, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the 5th day. And Elohim said, Let the earth bring forth the living creatures according to its kinds, livestock and creeping creatures, and beasts of the earth according to its kind. And it came to be so. And Elohim made the beast of the earth according to its kind, livestock according to its kind, and all that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Elohim said, Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the Shemayim, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over all the creeping creatures that creep on the earth. And Elohim created the man in his image, and in the image of Elohim he created him, male and female he created them. And Elohim barak them, and Elohim said to them, Bear fruit and increase, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the Shemayim, and over all creatures moving on the earth. And Elohim said, See, I have given you every plant that yields seed which is in the face of all the earth, every tree whose fruit yields seeds. To you it is for food. And every beast of the earth, and every bird of the Shemayim, and every creeping creature on the earth in which there is a breath of life, every green plant is for food. And it came to be so. And Elohim saw all that he had made, and see, it was very good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the 6th day. Thus the Shemayim and the earth were completed, and all their array. And on the 7th day Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim barak the 7th day, that's to say blessed, and he made it Kodesh, that is to say holy, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made. These are the births of the Shemayim and the earth when they were created, in the day that Yehovah Elohim made earth and Shemayim. No shrub of the field was yet on earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up, for Yehovah Elohim had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But the mist went up from the earth, and watered the entire surface of the ground. And Yehovah Elohim formed the man out of dust from the ground, and breathed into his nostrils breath of life. And the man became a living being. And Yehovah Elohim planted a garden in Eden, and to the east there he put man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yehovah Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of Chai, that is to say life, in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided and became 4 riverheads. The name of the first is Shawn, It is the one surrounding the entire land, Ahawala, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. Beldium is there, and the Shohem stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Cush. And the name of the third river is Hikkadakel. It is the one which goes toward the east of Ashur. And the fourth river is Perath. And Jehovah Elohim took the man, and he put him in the garden of Eden to work it, to guard it. And Jehovah Elohim commanded the man, saying, Eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day you eat of it you shall certainly die. And Jehovah Elohim said, It is not good for man to be alone. I am going to make him a helper for him, as his counterpart. And from the ground Jehovah Elohim formed every beast of the field and every bird of the Shemayim, and he brought them to man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name, so the man gave the names to all the livestock, and to the birds of the Shemayim, and to every beast of the field. But for the man there was not found a helper for him, as his counterpart. So Jehovah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of the ribs, and he closed up the flesh in its place. And the rib which Jehovah Elohim had taken from man he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And the man said, This is now my bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one is called woman, because she was taken out of man. For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother, join unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, and the man and his wife, yet they were not ashamed. All right, so please note we're halfway through the reading for this morning, and we just have the creation story that we're all very, very familiar with. God creates the heavens and the earth in 7 days, really in 6 days, and on the seventh day he hallows, he kodeshes, he makes a day set apart known as the day of rest, the Sabbath, and he sets the example himself of what it looks like to observe that. And of course we have all the animals being created as well. Notice it goes out of its way to let you know that at that time the ground, the earth was being watered from springs and from rivers. There was no such thing as rain. We don't get that until we get to Noah. Adam is created, but all the animals that are brought to him that he's naming are not fit to really be his counterpart, to be his second half, to be his helper. And that is when woman is created out of man. And so here they are, perfect situation, a garden, no burdens. And yet, the most tragic thing possible happens. We really don't know how long they were in the garden. Could have been 100 years. I mean, we have no way of really knowing. But they were in the garden, and then the next part of the tragic story happens. The part that we're all still suffering from as a result to this day. Let's begin, chapter 3. And the serpent was more crafty than any beast in the field which Jehovah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, Is it true that Elohim has said, Do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We already eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, Do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, You shall certainly not die, for Elohim knows that in the day that you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. Now, one thing I want to point out real quick, please note, I bring this up as often as I can when I read this story, and it is, how come Eve is not going, a talking snake? Why is she not freaked out about this? And one of the reasons that I believe is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, known as the Book of Jubilees, which claims that before the flood, that the animals could speak the common tongue of the day. And so she's hearing the serpent speak. She's not put off by the fact that it's a serpent talking. And so that's kind of the theory that I hold, based on text, not based on just coming up with stuff. Verse 6. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, and she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. And they heard the sound of Jehovah Elohim walking about in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Jehovah Elohim among the trees of the garden. And Jehovah Elohim called unto Adam, and he said, Where are you? He said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself. He said, Who made you know that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree which I commanded that you should not eat? And the man said, The woman whom you gave to me to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And Jehovah Elohim said to the woman, What is this that you have done? And the woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. And Jehovah Elohim said to the serpent, Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the livestock, and more than every beast of the field. On your abdomen you are to go, and to eat dust all the days of your life. Please note, so we're getting to some important information here. We have the fall. We have Adam blaming Eve, but also really kind of blaming God, because he says, the woman you gave me, and then Eve blames the serpent. All of these things are kind of true, but it doesn't matter. There's still disobedience. And Eve still knew what the command was, and so did Adam. Interesting, the serpent, one of its curses is that it would crawl on its belly and eat dust all the day of its life, which would lend to the idea that maybe it wasn't crawling on its belly at that time. But it's also really a spiritual metaphor anyway, because we're getting into a prophecy. Verse 15. And I put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed, and he shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. And so we have the prophecy of one day Messiah is going to come, and he's going to crush your head. And the woman, he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception. Bring forth children in pain, and your desire for your husband, and he rules over you. So please note, there seems to be, first of all, I'm just going to bring this up, but I'm not going to make a thing out of it, because there's no, I'm just going to make the point. It's very strange that the punishment, first of all, it's when their eyes are opened, there's this weird thing about nakedness, and so they're sewing fig leaves to cover up their body parts. And then the punishment for the woman for what she's done has to do with childbearing. It's just an interesting thing to think about. And there seems to be, like when they were in the garden, the husband and wife had like this perfect communion, right? They were perfect counterparts to one another. But one of the curses is that the woman would want to kind of be in charge, would want to be. That's what I think it means when it's talking about desiring after your husband. But he will rule over you. Ultimately, man would dominate. This is just reality. There's a lot of fighting about that right now within society and with culture, but in the end, it always shakes out the same way because it's the way God designed it. It's also part of the curse. And to the man he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, do not eat of it, cursed is the ground because of you, and in toil you are to eat of it all the days of your life, and it shall bring forth thorns and thistles for you, and you shall eat plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you are to eat bread, until you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you return. And the man called his wife's name Hawaha. Of course, we say Eve in English, because she became the mother of all living. And Jehovah Elohim made coats of skin for the man and his wife, and dressed them. And Jehovah Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put out of his hand and take also of the tree of Chai, and eat of it, and live forever. So Jehovah Elohim sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. And he drove the man out, and he placed a cherubim, that is to say, cherubim, at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way of the tree of Chai. So Adam's curse is that, the man's curse is that he would, eating is now going to come through labor. It's going to be hard work to produce for you, for your family. Whereas in the garden, it was paradise. And then now they are exiled from the Garden of Eden. A cherubim, angels are placed with flaming swords to guard the way so that man could not take of the tree of life. 2 more chapters here, chapter 4, verse 1. And Adam knew Chawah, his wife, Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain. And she said, I have gained a man from Jehovah. And again he gave birth to his mother Havel, and Havel became a keeper of sheep, and Cain became a tiller of the ground. And it came to be, in the course of time, that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Jehovah. And Havel also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. We're talking about Cain and Abel here in the English. And Jehovah looked to Havel and his offering. But he did not look to Cain and his offering. And Cain was very wroth, and his face fell. And Jehovah said to Cain, Why are you wroth? And why is your face fallen? If you do well, is there not acceptance? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should master it. So God's asking Cain, what's the problem? If you just do what you're told to do it the right way like your brother Abel is doing it, will you not be accepted? You're only being accepted because you're rebelling and doing it your own way. And he warns Cain, you could do well, but I'm warning you, sin is at your door. And Cain told Havel, his brother, Come, let us go into the field. And it came to be, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Havel, his brother, and killed him. And Jehovah said to Cain, Where is Havel, your brother? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's guard? Or the King James, right? Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. If you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. And Cain said to Jehovah, My wickedness is too great to bear. See, you have driven me out to the face of the ground today, and I am hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and wander the earth. And there shall be that anyone who finds me kills me. Please note, I just have to bring this up. I don't have an answer for you. But isn't it bizarre that Cain and Abel are like the first boys born to Adam and Eve, and yet as Cain's being exiled here to be a fugitive, to be a wanderer for his murder of his brother, and he's worried about whoever these other people are that are going to kill him. He says, whoever finds me will kill me. Almost suggesting that there was already other people or something of that nature. I always find that extremely interesting to dwell on, to think on. Now look, normally when I do the Torah portion, I study a bunch of Jewish commentary and all those things, but because of the rush of needing to do this morning, because I got the calendar wrong, I haven't done any of that. So I'm just giving you some off-the-cuff thoughts, but we'll be better prepared for Noach. The portion that we do on Friday. We're almost done here. Well, we got chapter 5 to read. Yeah, we're almost there. And Jehovah said to him, Well, if anyone kills Cain, vengeance is taken on him sevenfold. And Jehovah placed a sign over Cain, lest anyone finding him kills him. So Cain went out from the presence of Jehovah, and dwelt in the land of Nod, to the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Hanak. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Hanak. And to Hanak was born Arad. And Arad brought forth Mahiyael, and Mahiyael brought forth Methuselah, and Methuselah brought forth Lamech. And Lamech took for himself 2 wives. The name of one was Adah, and the name of the second was Silla. And Adah bore Yabel. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and live with livestock. And his brother's name was Ubal, and he was the father of all those who play the irie and flute. And as for Silla, she bore Tubal-Cain, a smith of all kinds of tools and bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Tilsa, Hear my voice, wives of Lamech. Listen to my words, for I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. For Cain is avenged 7-fold, and Lamech 77-fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son, and called his name Seth. For Elohim has appointed me another seed instead of Havel, because Cain slayed him. And to Seth, to him also was born, and he called his name Enosh. Then it was begun to call on the name of Jehovah. Chapter 5. This is the book of the genealogy of Adam. In the day that Elohim created man, he made him in the likeness of Elohim. Male and female he created them, and he blessed them, and he called their name Adam in the day that they were created. And Adam lived 130 years, and brought forth a son of his own likeness after his own image, and called his name Seth. And after he brought forth Seth, the days of Adam were 800 years. He brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 105 years, and brought forth Enosh. And after he brought forth Enosh, Seth lived 807 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And so all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enosh lived 90 years, and brought forth Cain. And after he brought forth Cain, Enosh lived 815 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And so the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. And Cain lived 70 years, and brought forth Mahalalel. And after he brought forth Mahalalel, Cain lived 840 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Cain were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalalel lived 65 years, and brought forth Yered. And after he brought forth Yered, Mahalalel lived 830 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. And Yered lived 162 years, and brought forth Hanak. And after he brought forth Hanak, Yered lived 800 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And all the days of Yered were 962 years, and he died. And Hanak lived 65 years, and brought forth Methuselah. And after he brought forth Methuselah, Hanak walked with Elohim 300 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. And all the days of Hanak were 365 years. And Hanak walked with Elohim, and then he was no more, for Elohim took him. We're talking about the gathering of Enoch from the earth, a man who never died. Verse 25, And Methuselah lived 100 years and 87 years, and he brought forth Lamech. And after he brought forth Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years, and brought forth a son, and called his name Noah, saying, This one comforts us concerning our work of the toil of our hands, because of the ground which Jehovah has cursed. And after he brought forth Noah, Lamech lived 500 years and 95 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 770 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old. And Noah brought forth Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it came to be, when men began to increase on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to him, that the sons of Elohim saw that the daughters of men, that they were good. They took wives for themselves of all they chose. And Jehovah said, My Ruach shall not strive with mankind forever in this going astray. He is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards. When the sons of Elohim came to the daughters of men, they bore children to them, those who were mighty, men who were of old, the men of name. And Jehovah saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And Jehovah was sorry that he had made man on earth, and he was grieved in his heart. And Jehovah said, I am going to wipe man off, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping creature and birds of the Shemayim. For I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of Jehovah. My friends, that is our Torah portion for this week, and of course, we're not just going to read over this in Genesis chapter 6 and pretend like it didn't happen. We have the sons of God. We've talked about this 1,000 times. I probably have 20 podcasts in the archives talking about this. You go read the book of Enoch, found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. You go read the book of Jubilees, found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. You go read old ancient Jewish commentary. It's very clear this was angelic beings whose appointing was to be watchers over mankind, but instead gave in to some strange lust that they had for the women of the earth. They come down, they intermingle with women, and produce the giants known as the Nephilim, which the Bible very clearly talks about. This, along with man's wickedness, is the reason for this flood that we're going to be reading about for Portia Noach. But so you basically just have the fall of man in a couple of different ways. And man is always led into this weird falling away by some angelic power, right? You have Adam and Eve in the garden, perfectly fine. Satan, in the form of a serpent, comes down, deceives Eve, they fall. Here we have man has become pretty corrupt, pretty wicked, according to the scriptures, but to make matters worse, angels come down, intermingle with women, children are created, giants, they're not even human, they're Nephilim. And now the world has to be flooded again. It's almost like there's some strange jealousy about mankind from the angelic host at times. And it's because man is made in the image of God. And we are the apple of his eye. And there's always grace and mercy for man. Because even in the midst of all this, Noah found favor in the eyes of Jehovah. That is our portion for this morning. I'm sorry it was rushed and unexpected, but I pray that you were still blessed by it. I don't know that I'm going to continue with the Hallelujah Scriptures this year. My actual plan is I have a King James Bible I need to get off the shelf that has identified within it all the places where the word Lord is actually supposed to be God's name. And so I might do that, and so it would be King James, but with God's name. I'll let you guys kind of give what you would prefer down in the comments. Those are the two options. I'll either read Hallelujah Scripture, so it would be a King James Bible, where we are still using God's name instead of the word Lord. That's really what I'm leaning towards. I wanted different music, I wanted different artwork, all those things, which still we have time to make those changes, don't we? All right. Thank you for listening, friends. Peace and grace be with all of you. And until next time, God bless.